Hello everyone, I'm Guk-Kyung Kwon, a PhD student from Georgia Tech. Today I'd like to talk about our paper titled Novelty Detection through Model-Based Characterization of Neural Networks. The combination of developed techniques in object detection, semantic segmentation, and instance segmentation enabled algorithms to understand and navigate complicated scenes. Also, more and more research have reported outstanding performance of deep neural networks to make it feasible to deploy learning-based models in our real life. However, as deep learning advances and shows amazing performance in many applications, we also notice many failures in neural networks that can cause vital consequences. In this paper, we address this problem of neural network failure through novelty detection. First, novelty, also called as anomaly, is defined as data whose classes or attributes differ from training data. For instance, images from different class or images with different condition can be novelties to train networks. When this novel data is input to the network, it can lead to unexpected prediction and outcome from neural networks. Therefore, we propose a novelty detection algorithm to successfully detect such novelties, filter them out, and finally ensure the robustness of machine learning algorithms. Most of existing approaches utilize data-based characterization for novelty detection. The data-based characterization answers the question of how much of the input does not correspond to the learned information. Using the reconstruction adder is one of the widely used novelty detection approaches in this category. On the other hand, in this work, we propose the utilization of backpropagated gradients to characterize novelties from model's perspective. Intuitively, novelties require more drastic updates on neural networks to fully represent them compared to normal data. Therefore, we use backpropagated gradients to characterize how much of the model update is required by input to detect novelties. Our contribution can be summarized as threefold. First, we propose a framework to characterize novelty from the model perspective using gradients. Second, we validate the representation capability of gradients for novelty detection in comparison with activation through comprehensive baseline experiments. Finally, we validate the generalizability of gradient features for different classes and input conditions. We first review the related works which are based on data-based characterization for novelty detection. Reconstruction error from the autoencoder has been one of the widely used features for novelty detection. Compared to normal data, novel data cannot be reconstructed accurately and resulted in large reconstruction error. For instance, when an autoencoder is trained with digit 0, the digit 0 results in low reconstruction error, while other digits such as digit 5 result in high reconstruction error. These reconstruction errors are utilized as discriminative features to classify novel data. Utilization of constrained representation is another popular approach for novelty detection. For instance, many existing works constrain the latent representation of autoencoder to non-probability distribution, such as Gaussian mixture model, and utilize latent loss to measure how the latent representation statistically deviate from the constraint. Compared to normal data, novel data deviates more from the constraint, and the latent loss effectively captures this deviation. Compared to the reconstruction error and the latent loss, which are obtained from forward propagation, our proposed approach utilizes backpropagated gradients for novelty detection. Gradients have been explored in diverse applications such as adversarial attack generation, visualization, and regularization. One of the examples in adversarial attack generation is fast gradient sign method, which generates imperceivable adversarial attack by adding signum of gradient. Gradients have been utilized to visualize the reasoning of neural networks by mapping information back to pixel space through gradient. In addition, gradient with respect to input has been used as a regularization term to enhance the robustness. While gradient has been explored in diverse applications, its representation capability for novelty detection has not been actively explored. To further elaborate what gradient features characterize and why they can be more effective than activation-based representations, we provide geometric interpretation of gradient features. Assume that we have an autoencoder trained to accurately reconstruct normal images. The reconstructed image forms a manifold, and for the simplicity of explanation, we assume that the manifold is a 2D plane. Ideally, perfect reconstruction is achieved when the reconstructed image manifold includes the input image. Now, when a novel image X out sampled from novel data distribution is given to the network, it will be poorly reconstructed since the novel data has not been utilized for training. The distance between X out and its reconstruction X hat out is formulated as reconstruction error. When the reconstruction error is backpropagated, the gradients with respect to weights are calculated. These gradients represent required changes in the reconstructed image manifold to incorporate the novel image. In other words, these gradients characterize orthogonal variation of novel data distribution with respect to the reconstructed image manifold. This geometric perspective highlights several advantages of gradient features for novelty detection. First, the gradient features provide directional information to characterize anomalies. Compared to the reconstruction error, which measures the distance information, the gradient captures in which direction the novel data distribution deviates from the normal data representations. Also, gradients from different layers captures novelty at different levels of data abstraction. Gradients can be obtained from any layer through backpropagation, and this enables algorithms to capture fine-grained novelty, both in low-level characteristics such as edge or color, and high-level class semantics. Now we will explain statistical analysis for highlighting the advantages of model-based novelty characterization. We first train a variational autoencoder using digit 5 images from MNIST dataset. The loss function for training is given as follows. The first term is the reconstruction error computed using binary cross entropy. And the second term is the latent loss formulated as KL divergence. After training, we extract reconstructed error, latent loss, and gradient features from the trained VAE using digit 5 inlier images and outlier samples from other digits. In particular, from the forward propagation, we obtain reconstructed image reconstruction error and the latent loss. And from the backpropagation, we compute the L2 norm of gradients with respect to the first layer of the decoder weights. Finally, we visualize these errors and statistics using histogram to show which features are more discriminant for novelty detection. We visualize histograms of binary cross entropy reconstruction error, KL divergence latent loss, and L2 norm of gradients. Since our goal is to differentiate novelties from normal samples, we expect histograms from inlier digit 5 to be separated as much as possible from the other histogram. We also report the percentage of overlap between two histograms by dividing the number of samples in the overlap region by the total number of samples. Ideally, we want the overlap to be as close to 0 as possible. As shown in this figure, gradient features show the smallest overlap between two histograms. This means that gradients are more discriminative features for novelty detection compared to other activation-based losses. We extend this idea and train novelty detectors using reconstruction error, latent loss, and gradients separately as features. We compare them to show the effectiveness of backpropagated gradient features for novelty detection. At the training of novelty detector, we do not have access to outliers. Therefore, we add Gaussian noise to inliers to model the outliers and generate features for them. From the forward propagation, we obtain unpooled reconstruction error and latent loss and utilize them to train two separate classifiers. From the backpropagation, we obtain the gradient from the first layer of decoder and utilize vectorized gradients as features to train classifier. The novelty detection performance of these three classifiers are compared to validate the representation capability of gradients. We validate the proposed gradient features in two novelty detection tasks. The first one is novel class detection. The goal of this task is to detect whether samples are from a learned class or not. We validate on three different benchmark image recognition datasets, which are MNIST, Fashion-MNIST, and CIPHER10. All three datasets have 10 classes, and in each experiment, we consider samples from one class as inliers and samples from remaining 9 classes as outliers. For instance, if we train our VAE using digit 5 images are considered as inliers, while other digits are considered as outliers. The test set consists of the same number of inliers and outliers. The performance was evaluated in terms of area under receiver operating characteristics. As shown in this table, the proposed gradient feature consistently outperforms other classifiers for all the inlier classes in MNIST and Fashion-MNIST. Also, the gradient features achieved the highest average AUROC in CIPHER10 dataset. Finally, given that the reconstruction error is backpropagated to generate the gradient features, we can understand the significance of directional information from the gradients by comparing the performance of the reconstruction error and the gradients. In all three datasets, the performance from the gradient features outperformed that from the reconstruction error by at least 0.04 AUROC scores. We also compare classifiers for novel condition detection. The goal of this task is to detect whether the images are affected by challenging conditions or not. We use CURE-TSR dataset, which contains more than 2 million traffic sign images with 12 challenge types and 5 challenge levels. In this experiment, we consider challenge-free images as inliers and images with challenging effect as outliers. We particularly use 5 different levels of 5 challenge conditions, which are lens blur, dirty lens, Gaussian blur, rain, and haze as novel conditions. These 5 challenge conditions are chosen to encompass acquisition imperfection, processing artifact, and environmental challenging conditions. We visualize the AUROC performance plot for each challenge type and challenge level. As shown in this plot, the classifier trained using the gradient outperformed those trained on reconstruction error and the latent loss for all challenge types and levels. Also, the gradient features achieved the largest improvement in rain, followed by lens blur and Gaussian blur. This shows that gradient features are effective not only for novel class detection, but also for novel condition detection. In conclusion, first, we propose a framework to characterize novelty from the model perspective using gradients. The statistical analysis demonstrates that the larger separation between inliers and outliers is achieved using the gradients compared to the activation. Finally, we show that the classifiers trained using the gradients as features outperform those trained using common activation-based features in novel class and condition detection. We appreciate your attention, and please check our website, paper, and code for more details. Also, the extended version of this work has been published in ICIP2020, so for more rigorous analysis and detailed experiments, please check our extended version. Thank you.